How comfortable are you with being yourself, your unadulterated, authentic expression of you in any given moment, completely unencumbered by the fear of judgment, rejection, ridicule, or even fitting in? And of course, there is a need to be sensitive to our environment. So I'm not saying that we should take all of the social mores and throw them out for the sake of reaching this point of self-acceptance and freedom to be who we are, but rather to understand the invisible prisons of our minds. Because many people, and not everybody, and you could be one of those exceptions, but many people struggle with being free to be themselves. In fact, some people even struggle to speak up, to speak their truth, to share their opinions, to ask for raises, to advocate for themselves, to advocate for their health, to stand in the face of authority, a teacher, a parent, a religious leader, and to question them. This is part of the growth journey, that when we understand why sometimes we are deeply afraid of just being ourselves, of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person, worried about repercussions that might come because we've stepped on somebody's toes, feeling guilt because we have hurt somebody's feelings or caused a reciprocal reaction in them that was negative, and we didn't intend on it necessarily, but we were expressing ourselves. And so there's this dance inside of the awakened person, and on the Ascension path, it's important to balance all of the aspects, not only from within, but also those that are externally imposed upon us, that we filter through the expectations of others in our internal centers and ask ourselves, is this mine? Is this theirs? And does it make sense to compromise? And this is what being an ascended master in human form is about, in my opinion, is making these high-level assessments and evaluations rather than just blanket reacting and saying, I shouldn't feel this way, or I shouldn't act this way, or I shouldn't show this part of myself, because the conditioning of our world has put shackles on us in certain areas, and not necessarily in any sort of egregiously evil way. We are pro-social animals. We are designed to fit in. In fact, our survival depends on some degree of being with a pack, being with a herd. And when we stray too far from the herd, sometimes there are detrimental consequences, not always, but sometimes. And so we have learned over time that there's protection in numbers. And going with the grain can offer us a comfortable life and a comfortable existence. And when people start to awaken beyond the mainstream, beyond what is traditionally taught, sometimes at first they are ridiculed. And you see this in science. And very, very futuristic scientific thought leaders, if they tried to publish work that was too far out of the mainstream, there are multiple examples of this, they were rejected, laughed at, and sometimes stripped of their credibility and reputation, which is everything to a scientist who is in the drumroll pattern of having to ask their peers for funding. And so there's a lot of pressure as a scientist to fit in, actually, because all of their work is critiqued by their peers. Their funding is given by their peers. And when they start to color too far out of those lines, very often, historically speaking, they are made a mockery of, and they lose opportunities. And so this is a systemic example of how these scenarios can play out, where we like to, as a herd, defend our viewpoints. We like to feel right, and it's a very egoic, mind-based feature of our humanity that when we start to awaken beyond the constructs of a 3D existence, we start to break away from the need to be right, but there's still a button inside of us that it feels good when it's pressed, when we are in our everyday reality, in our everyday existence, that is still anchored into 3D behavior paradigms. But this limits us. It limits our innovation, depending on which field you're in and which herd you're in. It limits our expansion. It limits our ability to make really big quantum shifts into the future. Because now let's take the science example. And let's say in the metaphysical fields, there is a new discovery about a human ability that is coming online, or perhaps the origin of our species. I was at a party recently and there was a discussion about this very topic, and there were clearly those present at the party who had been educated on some of the non-mainstream teachings. They started talking about this, and like Dr. Stephen Greer's work and the true origins of our everything that we've ever known, actually. They didn't even really get to the ET or the alien part. But even just questioning the fossil records was so aversive to somebody else at the party who was very much entrenched in mainstream dogma, and they are a very awakened, intelligent person. But they are still anchored in to the schoolings that they have received, that many people have received. And this conversation was so challenging for them that they actually left the conversation abruptly. And you see this. You see this conflict in our mental constructs, which then causes this reciprocal reaction for people to feel like they need to hide or to not share their actual beliefs. And this creates the invisible prison in our minds, which keep us inhibited, which keep us actually locked into this existence that we're not fully aligned with, that we don't fully blossom in. And I would encourage you, if you feel trapped sometimes by the fear of rejection or the fear of somebody's opinion or saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person, I would encourage you to embrace those consequences. It's counterintuitive, but having lived a life of almost complete shutdown and repression and inhibition, and hiding behind this construct of a personality that I thought would be attractive to other people, what I have found is that it is attractive to the wrong people. Actually, it is. And when you start to expand beyond the construct of that personality, those people who you were never actually in alignment with completely in the first place, maybe in some areas, right? But you couldn't really fully be yourself. And when you stretch too far and colored outside the bounds of what they found to be socially acceptable, there are consequences there. There's pressure. There's pressure. Sometimes it's more than pressure. Sometimes it is everything that you have feared: rejection, ridicule, abandonment. And this is the opportunity to level up beyond those, because in my personal experience, the true, tried and true people that actually genuinely care about you, and I know people say this, but until you've gone through the journey, it may not click at a deep level. It might just stay in the intellect part of your brain, and that's okay. But if you're like me, you still need to hear it. Because having gone through breaking myself out of these prisons of my own mind, it is so much better. Life is so much better. And a lot of those friends I don't have in my life anymore, but I have new friends. And I also enjoy my own company now. So I don't approach friendships in the same needy way because I'm seeking approval, because I'm worried that there's some part of me that is unacceptable. I now realize that there is some part of me that is unacceptable to some people and beautiful to other people. And so the light and the life that I live now and live by is so much more incredible, is so much more rich and fulfilling, because I can go to gatherings with ease and I can let people be around me who are not in alignment with me, and I can love them anyway, but I can also not want to go to another event with them. I can see them and hold space for them, and it doesn't encroach on my identity. And likewise, their opinion of me doesn't encroach on my identity either. And so they can be themselves, I can be myself, and I can realize that there are just some people that I don't really want to spend a lot of time around. And there are some people that feel the same way about me. And the beautiful thing about this awareness is that you don't have to pretend. And there's no energy draining, because you just don't go to things where you're not in alignment with anymore. And you allow yourself to cultivate the friendships that do bring you closer to that alignment. And you leave those gatherings or those events having seen those friends uplifted and encouraged with a different feeling. Like you don't have to worry who's talking behind your back, because A, you don't care even if they are, but B, you're attracting friends who don't feel the need to gossip. Somebody needed to hear that. So as a result, it changes the way you show up in the world, and it changes the way you feel in the world. And you being comfortable in your skin is the best freedom that you could possibly give yourself. So by releasing the need to impress people that you don't actually vibe with, that you don't actually align with, by not taking that position or that job, because you know that it will crush your soul and you're worth holding out, and trusting that the universe is going to bring you that which you need at just the right time. Yes, it is a little white-knuckled sometimes when you don't know how things are going to work out and you really need them to work out. It's white-knuckled. And there's beauty in going into that journey of the unknown with intent to surrender, but also to face off with your fears of your lack of trust, of your inadequacies that bubble up to the surface to be healed. There's a beauty in that jumping off at the cliff, not really sure exactly where you're going to land, but knowing that through your spiritual practice and your awakening and burgeoning consciousness that it's going to be okay. And that means letting go of those who really don't have your best interest at heart. And those who don't have your best interest at heart are actually those that deep down don't want your full authenticity, that don't actually want to see you succeed. They may not say it. It may be a hidden intention. But when you are truly around somebody that has your best interest at heart, they want you to be free. They want you to be vibrant. They want you to be lifted up, to be seen in the world, to cherish your gifts, to help you climb the mountains that you are trying to climb. And when you are stuck and enmeshed with people that are secretly sabotaging you, God forbid people still do that, but apparently they do, at least where I'm at. Or if they are harboring some resentment, or if they want you to stay in a lower position because it actually makes them feel better about themselves, and they haven't done the shadow work to have that awareness that that is the undercurrent of their dynamics, then you need to move to the rejection phase. You do. It actually benefits you, because people like that are not going to lift you up in the ways that you need them to, especially when the time comes, if the time comes for you. And that's when all friendships and relationships are tested. So if that time comes where you have to call on your support system, you will learn very quickly who's there for you and in what contingent ways they are there for you. And sometimes receiving help is a mixed blessing. And exercising discernment about who you're asking for help from is very important, especially if you're not yet free to be yourself. Because sometimes they can come with some interesting strings attached about how you should behave and show up in the world. And when you start accepting help from people that are motivated to have you color within their lines, and their help is contingent upon that, then you'll find that out, and it will be a rude awakening. And those are the people that don't always appreciate your radical authenticity. And so it's good for you to know and to figure out, but it can be very painful if you're going through that. Because you will see that the life rafts that you thought were beside your boat are suddenly not there. And that is getting to some of those core wounds of facing the fear of rejection and abandonment and whatever your story is. We all have one. That's the material that the world brings you for solving those wounds once and for all. Because everything up until that point has been an illusion. Everything up until that point has actually been an illusion. And when you face the reality, that is when you have the opportunity to do the very, very deep work that will actually free you.